This handle on this push broom doesn't fit. We can attach it by using a plastic bottle. Cut off the top of the plastic bottle and then fix it to the handle using some screws and a heat gun. Next, we'll screw the cap to the top of the brush head. Simply twist the two pieces together and it's good as new. Next, we'll be installing a door handle. First, we want to mark out the faceplate so that it sits. We can hold it in place by using screws. Use a utility knife to mark around the faceplate and then remove the screws and the latch assembly from the door. Use a chisel to remove the outer layer of wood, like so. Next, we'll use a spade drill bit that's equal to the width of the latch assembly, and we'll mark the depth of the latch assembly into the drill bit. Now we can drill multiple holes to make carving out this space quicker and easier. We can then remove the remainder of the wood . Now line up the latch assembly with the mortise to the side of the door and mark where the handle and the lock will go. Drill the appropriate size holes for both the handle and the lock. Hammer the latch assembly into place if necessary and drill the screws into the faceplate. Insert the spindle and attach the handles. Make sure that everything works like it should. Here's a quick way to sharpen knives. Twist two nuts onto a long bolt and tighten the bolt into the chuck. Fasten the drill into the vise and turn on the drill while passing the blade between the two nuts to sharpen the knife. Next, we'll be making a miter box using this aluminum C-channel frame. We'll make our marks using a construction square, one at 90 degrees and one at 45 degrees. Use a hacksaw to cut through the metal. Now we'll place the wood in the frame and we can make even cuts with our handsaw. Here's one at 90 and here's one at 45. How about adding a depth stop to our handsaw? This will prevent us from cutting too deep. Add a long piece of rectangular scrap wood and apply some double-sided tape to the back. Next, we'll make our marks on the saw to the depth that we need. One mark on each end. Now we'll lay our depth stop just above our marks. Measure it one more time just to be sure. Now let's crack open some walnuts. Find a wide drill bit and drill a few holes into a piece of scrap wood, then lay another piece of scrap wood on top, and then hit it with a hammer. Pour everything out and our walnuts are peeled. Having a way to stabilize this angle grinder is a requirement for safety, so we'll need to make a holder. We'll mark out the circumference of the outer lip shield, but ultimately, the grinder will rest on the inner lip shield. We'll get the measurement of the inner lip shield and cut out a half circle like so. Now, we'll screw this holder to a piece of scrap wood, which we'll clamp to the table. Set the grinder in the holder and check if it's stable. If we need to cut the end of the baseboard square, we can do so by creating a quick saw guide with only right angles. Trim off the excess baseboard until it's square. When cutting with a jigsaw or even with a circular saw, cutting freehand will leave us with an uneven cut. We can use a speed square as a guide to make straight, even 90-degree cuts and 45-degree angle cuts. We need to change the sandpaper on our belt sander. Cut a long piece of sandpaper that matches the width of the belt sander. Now add some glue to one end and stick it to a piece of scrap wood. Now we can tear off some of the grit, leaving behind just the paper. Now we can add our super glue to the paper end and attach it back to the other end of the sandpaper. Slip on the new sandpaper and give it a try. The edges of this board aren't lined up. We can secure them to a piece of wood and run a router bit through them. Now our two boards should be flush. We can keep these hazelnut shells from flying everywhere by placing them inside of this wrench. To help us line up these screws so that they sit flush, we can first drill a pilot hole. and now our screws will sit flush. To properly wrap Teflon tape, we'll first lay it almost vertically from bottom to top, then wrap downwards in a spiral motion. To make sure these cabinet hinges are installed properly, we'll first need to make a template. Using a piece of scrap wood, mark out the hinge and the holes. Push in 2 nails along the hinge line. Then mark out where the screws will go and drill the holes. Now we'll install the hinges. Everything lines up. We can make our own DIY garden auger for digging holes. We'll make 2 incisions on both sides of this diamond cutting wheel and attach it to the drill. Next, we'll make a brick texture roller. Start by cutting out foam rings and strips. Place them onto the roller brush and glue the strips on like so. Now we'll add some spackle to the wall and cover it with plastic wrap. Use the brush to roll out the brick texture. Sanding between gaps can be very tedious. We can add some duct tape to give the sandpaper some extra support. It's dangerous to use a planer or table saw without a push stick. We can make one using this paintbrush. Remove the bristles and cut out a notch in the handle. Now our fingers are safe. Let's add tape to the edge of our paint bucket. Keep our brush from dripping. This next project is making a rubber strap wrench. We want to drill a hole through this nut and then cut out notches on both sides. We'll insert the rubber strap like so, and then secure it with a bolt, tightening a nut on the other side. Now we can tighten the strap using the ratchet to loosen this oil filter. To fit these 2 pipes together, we can use a swaging drill bit. Using an angle grinder creates a lot of dust. A bit of double-sided tape will capture some of the dust and protect the shield. When finished, simply throw the tape away. Some screws just don't seem to want to hold on to the drill bit like we want them to. Luckily, we can use some double-sided tape once again to help us out. Add the tape to the drill bit and press the screw onto the tape. This knife is clearly dull. We can create a knife sharpening stand by drilling 2 holes into our stand and inserting the 2 stones. For our last project, we'll be creating an articulating arm that allows us to make straight marks across oddly shaped objects. We'll start by first drilling holes into each of the pieces of wood like so. Then we'll sand off the corners and edges of each piece. Next, we'll add bolts, washers, and nuts to each articulating joint and tighten. And the next piece will be screwed in perpendicularly. We'll screw in a smaller piece to the other end as well. Now we can mark straight lines, both on flat boards and even on the inside of this container.